Are you thinking about buying a house in 2023? This could be your year to put yourself into the home ownership category. Well, I created this video so I can walk you through the entire process, some things to look out for, so that way you can be successful with your first home purchase, or maybe you're buying your second home and thinking about relocating somewhere across the country. Either way, we got you covered. And you can also check out the link below in my description. There's a link to an entire guide to walk you through your first time purchasing. It'll walk you through the entire step along with some of the ideas that I'm going to give you here today. So if we haven't met before, my name is Seanu Uyehara. I'm a branch manager with Loan Depot, helping you finance your homes all across the country. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or a seasoned investor, I created this channel to help you get your mortgage right. You can hit the link below in the descriptions for more information, as well as if you want a free no-cost analysis, whether you're thinking of buying or refinancing. That's what I'm here for, to make sure you get a good deal out there. So you can always shoot us an email. I'd be happy to look at that for you. Now, the first and most important thing you need to start doing if you are thinking about buying is come up with a budget. This is something that not a lot of people talk about simply because they try to get you into the process as fast as they can. However, I think with inflation and everything that we've been seeing over this last year has made a lot of us reassess our spending habits. And I think if buying a house is a goal of yours, you may have to get a little more disciplined with your spending. Now, one of the things I would definitely recommend is going through all your finances. Go look at your credit cards. What's the balances that are owed on them? Can you pay some of them down? Can you pay maybe some of them off? Do you have any bad debt that is still circulating out there that maybe you need to clean up? I've had so many clients over the years that have had these collections from cell phone companies that they refuse to pay, and it only hurts their credit score. So if you have a cell phone bill that's been haunting you for the last 5 years because you feel that T-Mobile or AT&T might have screwed you over, pay the bill, because that collection is hurting your score, which is also hurting you overall financially, because not only is this house purchase dependent upon your credit score, but so is your car insurance and many other things that factor on based on your credit. So get that stuff cleaned up and get that out of the way. Now, also look at what you are comfortable paying going forward. If you're paying $1,500 a month in rent right now, but let's just say you're comfortable paying $2,000 a month for a mortgage, I would start paying that $2,000 a month every single month. So I would pay the $1,500 a month to your landlord and put that other $500 into some sort of savings account or interest-bearing account, because you can probably earn a little more money on it today versus just having that money sit in a checking account. That way, you psychologically get comfortable making that $2,000 payment every single month, because the last thing you want to have happen is move into a house and then now you are not comfortable making that mortgage payment. I remember when I moved into my first home and I started to get all the bills and everything that was going against the house, I felt like every single week I checked the mail, there was another bill that I had to pay. Whether it was a utility bill, my car loan, my car insurance, anything else that came in, I literally felt every single week, as soon as I opened the mailbox, there was another thing I had to pay, which was a little frustrating and annoying at the same time. So if you're in that position where maybe you live with some roommates and maybe you're not responsible for paying everything right now, start making those payments every month, but pay it back to yourself. So that way the expenditure still comes out of your account, and now you can almost pretend that you do own a property and you are paying some of these extra bills that will come up when you do become a homeowner. That way you're not shocked, or you're like me. Every single time I checked my mailbox, I was just getting depressed because I knew there was something in there that I'd have to go and spend money on. So I think having a budget is one of the most important things you have to do, whether you're 6 months out or even a year out from buying, so that way you can get everything dialed in. Step number 2, which is the most important step in buying a house, is getting with a loan officer first. And I know some of you to this day, we are still brainwashed to think that we need to contact a real estate agent first. But that's actually backwards, because the realtor is not going to be able to help you with your finances, nor will they be able to answer questions about getting you qualified and getting you pre-approved to start shopping. However, if you're paying for your house in cash, then yes, you can skip over this step and you can keep watching the rest of the video. But if you are getting financing, which most of us out there finance our first home, you want to make sure that you are working with a reputable lender. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can go about finding who a reputable lender is. You can go to Zillow.com. It's a great website that you can look up loan officers all across the country. There's tons of reviews on there. They're actually ranked by stars, so you can see who is a 5-star lender in town and what type of reviews their past clients have had to say about them. Now, the cool thing about these reviews is that they're actual reviews. You can't buy them or create fake ones. You actually have to have real people leaving testimonials there. So the testimonials that you see are from real people. You can definitely check that out. And I think that's a good way to see who are you dealing with and what will the transaction be like. Getting pre-approved is so important because the lender's going to go through your finances with you. This is where they're going to look at your credit. They're going to look at your income, your debt. How much money can you put down towards buying your new house? This is why the budgeting is so important, because a lot of the questions that your loan officer is going to ask you, you should already have the answers to these questions, which makes the process go a lot easier. And you already have sort of a ballpark figure in your head as to how much home you'd like to be able to qualify for. So many people have no idea where they want to buy, how much they can afford, which is okay, because you don't need to know that number specifically. However, if you have a certain ballpark, it gives your loan officer an idea of where to work towards. Now, no matter what, you will be only approved for the amount that you can truly qualify for. But remember this, since interest rates are a little higher than what we've seen over the last few years, many loan officers are max qualifying their clients. And what does this mean? This means that with the guidelines that are set forward from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, and VA, and USDA programs, every loan officer, every lender has to follow certain guidelines. Now, what most lenders may be doing is taking your buying power to the absolute maximum, which means your debt to income ratio is as high as the program will allow. But you might say, well, that's great because I can buy more house. But here's the thing. When the lender does that, if you are a W-2 earner, what will happen is the lender is qualifying you based off of your gross income. So they are looking at qualifying you before your taxes get taken out. So think about that for a second. If your gross income and the lender's qualifying you at a 50% debt to income ratio, what happens when the taxes come out? What happens when you contribute towards your 401k? What happens if you have child support? All of these things get factored in after the fact, and now your take-home pay is going to be a lot less. So this is where, again, back to my initial point, you got to have a budget because you want to factor in all of these other expenses that come up. This is something that could bite you in the butt down the road and then put you in a tough spot. And then you have to decide, do I put food on the table or do I pay my mortgage? And you never want to put yourself in that position. Now, as you're shopping for your lender and getting pre-approved, the one thing that I constantly stress to all of my clients and to you that have been watching my channel for the last several years is to make sure that you look at the right option. And by option, I don't mean who's got the lowest rate. Because here's the thing. Any mortgage lender out there can charge you a ton of money to give you the lowest rate possible. Now, whether or not they tell you that's what they're doing, that's their prerogative. And that's honestly for you to figure out. And that's where sometimes many clients get burned because they don't know what line item to look at. All you are focused on is the interest rate. And this is why, again, our entire industry, both real estate and mortgage, it's so antiquated with the way things are done. So many people are brainwashed over the last 50 years on how to buy a house. These are the mistakes that happen every single day. And this is why I made my channel to help you understand some of these things to look out for. Because if all you're focused on is the lowest rate, and that's what you tell your loan officer, guess what they're going to do? That's how they're going to structure a loan. They're going to charge you a bunch of points, a bunch of fees. They're not going to tell you about it, but they're going to give you that lower rate. Now, what will happen is once you're in contract on a house, you may not actually find out maybe 2-3 weeks into the deal that you're being charged an extra $20,000. So this is why the option and strategy is so key when you're getting pre-approved. Every loan officer should be able to show you 2 to 4 different ways on how you can qualify to buy your house. If they can only show you one way, that's a problem. You need to find out why that's the case. And that could be maybe you're limited on income. Maybe you're limited on money to put down. But remember, you don't always need a down payment because you might be buying a home using USDA financing. Maybe you're a veteran, or maybe you're utilizing a down payment assistance program that can cover that for you. So there's a myriad of things that can come up during this process. And this is why I always stress looking at options. If you get focused on one little thing and that's what you tell your loan officer, that's how they're going to structure your file. But if this is your first time buying a house, shouldn't you rely on the loan officer to give you some guidance? Think about that for a second. You should not be the one telling your loan officer how to structure your file. If you have to do that, you probably need a new loan officer. So make sure you are looking at strategy. Make sure you're looking for a good loan officer who's reputable. And again, you can look at their social media pages. You can look at their reputation online, or you might find them on a YouTube channel just like this. The next step in the process is finding a good real estate agent. This is also really, really important. There's been a lot of people that have gotten into the business, both on the lending side and in the real estate side, over the last couple of years. As COVID hit and everyone was forced to work from home or maybe find other careers, lots of people got into the mortgage and real estate business. Why? It was easy money over the last 2 years. You could literally make 6 figures in your pajamas at home. That's how easy the business was. Now, if you're buying a house, you want to make sure that you have someone that's representing you the right way. And what I mean by that is there are so many things that come up from negotiating to understanding the market trends and also data that's out there. You want a realtor who's been doing this for a while. You don't want someone who's brand new to the business, who doesn't know anything about the market, or let alone doesn't even own their own house. Now, if they're brand new, I would see if they are on a team. If they're on a team that's been in business for a long time, that's fine. That's totally great because you can have the experience of the team leader or the broker that can walk them through the process. However, if you're working with someone that recently got in and they only got in to make some money, I would probably find someone else that is more knowledgeable about the market. And I say this from a lending standpoint because there's a lot of realtors that I've worked with over my career that do not understand the contract, that do not understand the process, and they will literally ask me how to respond to an email from their client. Now, this is one thing you definitely want to avoid. So make sure you do your due diligence with your real estate agent. And if you absolutely get stuck and you can't find one, send me an email and I'd be happy to connect you with someone that I know personally who can do a good job to help you cross the finish line. Now we're going to take a quick pit stop here and I want to bring this up. Another thing that comes up quite often is should you wait for the real estate market to crash? And in my opinion, if you are buying your home to sell within a year or two, I would tell you to rent because we don't know where the market's going to go over the next couple of years. Everyone's projecting interest rates to come down, which will then spur a lot of people to start buying houses again. We don't know if that's going to happen. We're all hoping and we're all anticipating that because we're starting to see inflation numbers start to get a little better. Now, could that all change? Absolutely. So many things that we would normally rely on in the last couple of years got thrown out the window. So if you're a buyer and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to move into this house in a year, I'm going to sell it for a bunch of money, maybe you need to wait. Maybe you need to be on the sidelines and see how things play out over the next maybe 3 or 6 months. However, if you're moving into this house and it is your long-term goal to be in this property, whether that be 5 to 7 years or maybe 7 to 10 years, if that's the case, I don't think there is a right or wrong time to buy because the market will recover in that time frame and you will be able to put yourself into a good position while owning the home. Now, more often than not, many of you are going to wait and you're going to wait until the last minute to buy. But remember, the market always has its ebbs and flows. Things are going to go up, things are going to come down. But in the grand scheme of owning real estate always wins. And I'm a big believer in owning homes for the long run. Unless there's a really good reason to sell, I plan on holding my properties for cash flow in the long run. So this is something you need to decide for yourself. What is your goal with owning the property? Is it to sell it in a year or two and make some money and move on? If that's the case, renting may be the best option for you. If your goal is to be in the house 5 to 10 years, I think now is the time you start looking and figuring out what can you qualify for to purchase. Because here's the one thing you have to realize. If you're on the sidelines and you want to wait until the market gets better, everyone has a different definition of what better means. If better to you means I want home prices to come down by $20,000, well, guess what? A good real estate agent could probably negotiate that deal for you today. So if that's the case, why are you waiting? Why not take advantage of the market where it is today and get that deal? Now, if you think home prices are going to come down by $100,000, maybe you have some time to wait. However, let's play this out for a second. Let's say the market does come down $100,000. The question I want to ask you is, do you have enough cash to come in above the appraised value on that home to get your offer accepted? The one thing that so many of you tend to ignore when you say things like, I want to wait until the market comes down, is that you don't have a lot of cash. So the extra $10,000 you might have saved, it's not going to be enough to play the game. Because remember what happened during COVID. People were willing to pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 above the asking price to get their offer accepted. If you don't have that kind of cash, you're waiting for the time to buy, and that time will never come because you don't have enough ammo to fight the fight. And you also need to remember that there are banks, there are hedge funds, there are so many corporate investors out there that are constantly buying houses. So if the housing prices come down by $100,000, do you think you have a deeper pocket than Goldman Sachs? I don't think so. So how are you going to compete in a market where you literally do not have enough money to play the game? This is why when the opportunity comes up that you can afford to buy something that you want, I strongly think you should look at buying that. Because waiting for a deep discount to come, I think it's only going to hurt you in the long run. And for most of you, you don't have enough money saved in order to play that game. Now, this is something that has actually been coming up more and more these days, where you're starting to hear more people talk about their house price and value. They're starting to go underwater here in 2022. Well, why is that the case? Well, guess what? They overpaid for the house during COVID. They overpaid for the house by paying above the appraised value. These are some of the mechanics and why a good real estate agent is important, because they're going to walk you through this process. So if you want to sit back and wait for that to happen, you can't get mad that your house is now upside down in value if you paid $50,000 more than what it was worth a year ago. Of course, you're going to be upside down. You overpaid for the house. So make sure you understand some of these mechanics that are out there, because if not, you might put yourself in a position where you're regretting your home purchase. So now you've got a good realtor, you've got a good lender, you understand your financial goal of what you want to do with the house. How long does this process take to close? Well, typically once you go into contract on a house, the closing time frame is about 30 days or less. There are situations where the loan does not close in 30 days or less because maybe the seller needs some extra time to move their stuff out of the house. Maybe your loan officer has a few more conditions that they have to satisfy in order to close your loan. But generally speaking, once the seller accepts your offer, you have about 30 days to close. Now, the other thing to remember is that as your real estate agent is writing your offer up, that is part of the contract. So you should be well aware how long the closing process is going to take. If you as a buyer need more time, then you can request that on your contract. You can put a 45-day close. You can put a 60-day close. And that is your agent's job to negotiate that as part of your initial offer. So again, generally speaking, 30 days. But if you want to close faster, check with your lender, because most lenders can close a loan in 3 weeks or less if need be. And if you need more time, talk to your real estate agent about that too, because they can certainly negotiate that and make that part of your offer. Which leads me into my next point: negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. This is something that you want to make sure that your real estate agent is doing for you. Again, thinking in hindsight about what happened during COVID, there was no negotiating. In fact, many realtors out there did not negotiate. I work with a handful of people that did a great job negotiating for our clients, and that's why I love working with people like that. But a lot of agents that I did deals with across the country were literally writing offers, and they would tell their clients, this is your best and final, this is what you have to come in with, or we're not writing the offer. So you want to make sure that someone is there to represent you. You don't want someone who has the seller's best interest in mind. You want someone who has your best interest in mind. And I know that might sound a little obvious, but you'd be surprised at the conversations that I was having with real estate agents over the last couple of years, where they would literally write the offer based on what the seller wanted. So if you're just writing based on what the seller wants, then why is the agent even working for you? Or are they truly working for you if that's the case? This brings me back to my point again. Hiring a good real estate agent is really important, because these little things that happen up front could hurt you down the road. Just like some of these clients are getting frustrated at the fact that their houses are upside down in value. Do you think they had that conversation with their realtor when they wrote that offer? I would highly doubt it. And now, do you think they're happy with their real estate agent now that their house is upside down in value? Probably not either. So you want to make sure that you have these conversations about what could potentially happen down the road. Is my house going to lose value? Is it going to make me money? And if it does, how long will it take for me to actually recoup some of these costs that I'm putting into the property? And they may not be able to answer that question, but maybe they need help from a lender. And as a loan officer, we have tools, we have data that can give you a rough idea based on historical data, what the value could be in a few years. Number 7, do not skip any inspections. This was something that was very prevalent in the last 2 years as home values ran up. Many buyers skipped inspections, again, to appease the seller so they could get their offer accepted. You don't want to buy someone else's problem. You want to make sure that when you move into this house, you've done all your due diligence. You want to make sure that you've inspected the roof. You've inspected the attic. You've inspected the fact that there is no mold in the house. You want to make sure that you are not going to inherit someone else's problems. It's simply because it's going to make your realtor's job easier at getting your offer accepted to get you the house. I could care less how easy it is to get my offer accepted. That's why I hire a realtor. You need to go work for me and look out for my best interests. When I move into that house, I want to know that I've looked through every single nook and cranny and I know that there are no issues. Now, if there are issues that do come up, that is then your time to present that back to the seller and ask them to either fix it, maybe offer you a credit, maybe even lower the sales price of the house if you're going to do the work yourself. But again, this is also a negotiating point. So you want to make sure you do not skip this step, because if there's something that is alarming and it's something that you won't live past, you can back out of the contract. That's also something you want to be aware of, is where are your outs in the deal, right? Just because you get your offer accepted, that doesn't mean you have to move forward on the house. There could be a number of things that come up that you don't like, and that's your opportunity to say, you know what, I don't want to move forward simply because of X, Y, and Z. But that's where a good realtor is going to walk you through that process and going to explain that portion of the purchase contract to you. Now, as you go through the financing process and your lender's working on getting your loan approved, getting your appraisal back, you also get another opportunity to walk through the house, which is called your final walkthrough. This is also another key piece, because there have been a ton of times that clients will walk through a house, and let's say you thought they were going to leave that chandelier over the dining room table, but guess what? They're taking it with them. Now, you may not want to buy the house, but those are also things that your realtor needs to be aware of. Maybe you thought they were leaving the appliances, or maybe you thought that they were going to clean the house up and they're actually not. There's a lot of things that can come up during a final walkthrough that could blow a deal up. I remember early on in my career during the foreclosure days, one problem that would always come up was that people were stealing the AC units outside. So they would either break them, steal them, or they would rip off the copper and sell them somewhere else. You want to make sure that the house that you initially fell in love with still looks the same way before you close. And again, if there's anything that's missing, if there's another problem, that's the time for your realtor to step in and negotiate and figure out what the problem is and come up with a solution. There's a lot of opportunities for your realtor to flex their muscle and flex their knowledge and expertise throughout this transaction if things start to get a little off track. This is also important to keep your lender in the loop, because if there's certain things that are being negotiated, your lender should be aware of that. That way your loan officer can try to time the closing as best as possible to get your loan documents over to the title company so you can sign and you can finally close on your house. Which brings me to my last point, your closing. This is where the magic happens. You've done your hard work, you've done your due diligence, you've done everything possible from start to finish, from budgeting, finding the right lender, finding the right realtor, and having fun finding your house. So as you go to your closing, you're going to make sure that everything that your lender promised you is what it says on your closing documents. This is something that does also happen to where things change. And again, your lender may not tell you, hoping you just sign off on those documents. So make sure that you are fully aware of what's going on. If something doesn't look right, make sure to ask questions. Don't just say nothing and close on the house, because once you close, there is no turning back. You have to then make that mortgage payment. So anything that doesn't sound right, doesn't feel right, ask the question. Your lender should be more than happy to answer those questions for you, regardless of how many times you ask it or how stupid it may seem to you. It doesn't matter. It's your house and you're making the payment. Now, once you close on the property, the cool thing is you don't have to make a payment immediately. So let's just say we're in the month of December and you signed your loan documents in December. Your first mortgage payment is going to be February 1st. So you also have some time to then maybe move out of your old place, get yourself situated into your new property, and you're not having to make payments immediately. This is also something many people are deathly afraid of because they feel as soon as they close, they then have to make a payment. You have some time. That's something that's universal with all mortgages, so you don't have to stress on that. These 9 steps will help you be successful in any market, whether things start to pick up or things go back down. This will protect you. And if you need more information, there's a link in my description on my entire first-time homebuyers guide that will give you more info from start to finish. And if you have specific questions, I'm here for you. Send me an email. If not, I'll see you on the next one.